In front of you at the moment is the Netskope tenant. Netskope is a cloud-based secure web gateway, next generation secure web gateway, CASB, so Cloud Access Security Broker. We've got all kinds of things under the hood of this tool. We've got the DLP, threat protection. We've got the NPA, which is private access. That's like an always-on VPN. We've got the endpoint DLP, which is going to do control of files that are on a device being transferred locally. We've got Cloud Firewall, which would stop me RDPing onto, say, a machine in my house or SSHing out to a device and transferring files that way. There's just so much going on in this tool. It did start as a next-gen secure web gateway / CASB, but now it's taken arms and legs and it's all kinds of things. So today we're going to focus on the DLP. This is the interface for it. So I've logged into the test cloud tenant that we've got. The first thing about it is that it's very clean. So having worked with these tools before, it tends to be that you get a number of vendors would acquire products and mash them into a particular tool. There was one known offender that I won't name where I would used to rack stacks and stacks of 1U, 2U units in data centers and cabinets. All the network traffic would pass through it. There would be antivirus, there would be DLP, there would be endpoint protection type tools, secure web gateway, etc. But they were hard to configure. They did eventually put in a single tool that you could log in to configure each of them, but it was still quite a bit ropey. Well, Netskope's been designed from the ground up, so it's very clean, very easy to use. As we move around it, you'll see how easy it is to create policies and so on. As long as you keep your policies, naming convention okay and all that, I find it one of the easiest tools that I've ever had to work with. So looking at DLP, what do we want to do with it? Well, Netskope controls web traffic. Here on this device, I have a Netskope client installed. That Netskope client is taking the web traffic that I want to send to Netskope and just sending it securely up to the tenant so that it can be looked at, so that policies can be enacted on it. It can be encrypted, decrypted, SSL bypassed, etc. But this little client here is what's handling my web traffic. Now, I said what I choose to send up to the tenant because you don't have to send everything. So for example, if I log into my bank right now here, do I really want that going to Netskope? Do I want someone in the way of my communication with my personal bank account? No, I don't. So I can say not to steer, for example, finance and accounting, so that it is not going through that tenant. That's just one example. There may be other things that you might want to bypass completely. Examples are, say, an application. So we have the ability, in fact, I'll just jump into the back end and I'll show you. In here, we've got a steering configuration and we can essentially pick and choose. So at the moment, for all users, I'm sending every bit of web traffic and all private apps. But if I come into here, you can see that I've got some exceptions. These are kind of out of the box exceptions and a few ones that I've created. But a certificate pinned app to me is, say I'm using something like Adobe. So these days, Adobe is always on. It's a cloud-based service mainly. You have to constantly be online for your license to get checked and so on. If you put Netskope in the way of that, it might interrupt the chain of communication between the Adobe on my machine and the Adobe in the cloud to verify who I am. So you can create it where the actual process on the machine, adobe.exe or whatever it's called, doesn't steer to Netskope if it's doing a particular URL and so on. So it's fully granular as to what you want to send to Netskope and what you don't. So once my traffic goes to the cloud, it gets looked at for policies. I've got some policies here. So in my real-time protection, I don't have any enabled right now because we're going to start from scratch, but these are examples of policies down here that are grayed out. We can control pretty much anything. So we can, at the secure web gateway level, we can block based on categories. The typical way you would do that is you want to block gambling in your acceptable use policy, you block the gambling category, and any website that Netskope knows is a gambling site. It can also read websites on the fly. It's called dynamic classification. it will block that site if Netskope believes it to be a gambling site. Then we've got the risky side of it. So you might not want to block at category level. Say you've got a whole bunch of threats that you detect, you download URL lists and so on from things like abuse.ch. Well, I create a risky category group. So it'll be things like Netskope give you a whole bunch of out-of-the-box categories which are to do with phishing, to do with malware, etc. If I jump into the categories here, I'll give you an example of them. They're all under security risk. Take a moment. So there we go, security risk, all of these types of things I would be blocking. I would be blocking development tools for non-developers. I'd be blocking uncategorized, part domains, no content, the types of categories that get assigned to phishing websites. There is a phishing category here, but I would be blocking everything that is kind of unknown on the internet. But then I want to create exceptions for that, and you do that via URL lists. So say I've got a custom category here. I've got phishing risky categories. Well, I could come in here and create a exclude and an include, and it's just a case of putting whatever URLs into this so that they are now allowed, and putting them into that so that they are now blocked if they don't meet the criteria for my overall category. And it's that simple to actually incorporate this into a working environment, because it's just so straightforward. One of the worst things I can do with it is when I go and deal with legacy products where people are moving from on-premise to Netskope, it's the mess that their system's in and trying to make sense of their old system before I can turn it into a nice clean policy setup is actually where the real work is, to make sure that people aren't now given too much freedom because you've missed a setting and so on, but tracing it back via AD groups and individual policies for individual apps and things, it becomes an absolute nightmare. So there we go. So it's very straightforward. We've got policies we're going to create. We can do it right at the category level. So we're looking here at, we're blocking the gambling. Okay, so just if a user visits that, they get blocked from gambling. But what if we want to do it at the activity level? So a secure web gateway would usually just block you like a firewall, where you're trying to go to a website. You've got either an allow or a block rule. You try and go, you either get to go to it or you don't. You just get completely denied. You don't get to go and visit. Then it picks and chooses what you can do in that website. Well, now you can. So we can create a policy. So if I was to choose my gambling one as an example, there we go, gambling. Sorry, I get this little control panel in the way for controlling this meeting, and I always have to move it around. So you might see my mouse doing weird things. So if I come into the activities section, you can see that I can now block various activities on that website. So an example of this in gambling would be, say you are a bank and you have a fraud team, and that fraud team has to go to gambling sites to check if they're legit, to see if they're someone's raised a complaint about their card being used on a gambling site. The fraud team have to go and look at it and see exactly what that site is, or communicate with them, something like that. Then you want your fraud team to be able to visit the gambling site, but you don't want your users to be able to visit the gambling site. And you don't want your fraud team to use the gambling site. You only want them to go and get the information they need. They shouldn't be signing up for accounts. They shouldn't be logging into it. They shouldn't be using their machine to gamble on as part of the acceptable use policy. So what we would do is we'd create a policy that blocks everything for all users. So everyone gets blocked from gambling. Then we create a policy with an exception in it to say that if you're in the fraud team, only login attempt is blocked from gambling, but everything else is allowed. Well, we could maybe block download and upload. Well, maybe not download. If they needed to download, maybe terms and conditions and things like that. So they can browse to a gambling website. They could download any terms and conditions, maybe block the download if there was going to be downloading of exe files to allow them to install gambling software. But that would be a case by case. You'd have to look at the behavior of it. But let's give them at least browse anyway. So the fraud team can now go to the gambling site and they can look around it, but they cannot log into it. They cannot use the site. So now we've got our all users, so everyone in the company is blocked from gambling except the fraud team, because they can now browse gambling. And that is the activity. That's like the next gen element of a secure web gateway, is it's now reading the code of the page. It's understanding like the back-end HTML, JSON files, the CSS and all that, all the communication between the user and the site itself as to the activities they're doing on that site. Netskope understand, so rather than just you blocking someone going to the site, you can now block them at activity level to stop them interacting with the site in the way that you don't want to. Now, when it comes to gambling, you can see here, I've only got the 4 options, so I don't get many options to choose from on that particular site. But as we now move into the CASB element, and if I choose a different policy type here, and we're looking at the application level, so let's pick an app. Let's go for one of the most common, which will be like OneDrive. Let's find OneDrive because we're going to be focusing on DLP today, so OneDrive is a good one to use. So if we look at OneDrive now, look at how many we've got here. So we've got reams of activities for OneDrive at the CASB level, but note that we don't have browse. So if you wanted to block someone going to OneDrive, you would have to do it as a web policy to block the browse element. But if you're allowing OneDrive, but you want to control what people can do in OneDrive, then at the CASB level, you can stop all of this. You can block various things. So handy for, say you've got contractors, say you've allowed them access to OneDrive, but you've also got your main staff members. Well, your main staff members probably can do everything, whereas you might want to stop the contractors downloading. So you could block the download, or you might want to stop the contractors sharing, so they can't create share links in OneDrive, share it with someone that's unknown. So you can begin to build out granular policies at the application level. So remember that this applies only when when Netskope detects that it is Microsoft OneDrive. Well, these policies kick in to block maybe the delete and the rename and stuff like that. Now they do give you a thing called the CCI. If I jump back here, the CCI is essentially, they do all the homework on what apps are. You can see they're about just over 54,000 there, so there's 54,229. But if I take away, so let's see how many are under research. So there's about 14,000. So let's say 15,000 are under research. And in total, there's 55,000. So there's about 40,000 apps in this that Netskope have done a bit of work on to work out what they are. To see an example, if I click on AWS here, since everybody knows AWS, they give it a score over, with some communication with the company, the app in question, they give it a score. So they give it a cloud confidence score as to how secure the app is, how well maintained it is, just the overall risk of using it in your business. But they do that with communication with the company. They just don't pluck it out of the air. A lot of research goes into this. They've got all the legal terms down here, all the types of usage of the app, the price of it. You can compare apps. If I put in another one here, like say I put in Azure, we can see them side by side and see which one does one thing, which one doesn't. You can see all the activities that you can block for this. So for AWS, what is it? It's a console that you can log into. You can fire up devices, etc. It's really just blocking you from accessing that page. So we can stop people logging into it. We can stop people logging out of it. I don't know why you would, but we can block those activities. But we can't stop someone firing up a VM inside of AWS once they get into it. We don't see that as an option, but we can at least stop people accessing it. And previously with the secure web gateway element, it was tied to a category. This one is tied to all the domains that they're aware of or have badged against the app, that these rules will apply. Now, it does do referrals, so you might see the policy being applied to a URL that isn't in this list, and that's because the page, like appy.amazon.com, might be making a call to a website, might be doing a referral, but it's still going to come up as the AWS app, so therefore the policy will still apply. If I come out of this, just moving this little menu around, come back to the home screen, go into my policies. So we've talked about 15 minutes on Netskope as a whole. Just wanted to give you some of the fundamentals of how it works based on what we're going to be doing today. And we're just going to jump straight in and do some hands-on type stuff. So what's the first thing we want to do DLP-wise? We want to think, what do we want to stop? Where do we want our users putting things? What's a sanctioned app? What isn't a sanctioned app? When I was in the CCI there, you could add tags to various apps. So if I quickly click on, you can see I've got custom tags and so on. If I go into this app is unsanctioned. It's an enterprise level app. I can mess around with these tags if I want. I can create my own tags. I really would want to see some homework done as to what is DLP? What's the definition of sensitive data inside your business? So when I go to a company, they tend to always say, oh, we want to stop PCI from anywhere. We want to stop PII from leaving the business. We want to adhere to GDPR, and that's it. But then an auditor comes in and goes, okay, I can upload source code to GitHub without any blocks. Oh, I can get round all your DLP policies because all I do is I put all the stuff in a zip file and I zip it up and I send it, and your DLP tool doesn't stop it, so I can steal whatever I want. And you get those kinds of, you're looking at what is your full attack surface when it comes to DLP. What's your definition of DLP? What's your definition of sensitive data? Where should users be? All that stuff you need to start thinking and working out so that you can build your policies out from it. But a common one is we want to only use a specific app for storing data. So here at Somerford, we're a Google house. So I've got Google Drive here. Should hopefully still be logged into it. So there's Google Drive, it's empty. I've got an empty test account that I use for Google Drive. So let's make it where we can only upload GDPR info or PII info up into Google Drive. So what would we do? We'd have to create an allowed policy, and we'll do it at the application level. We want it to apply to all users because everyone in the business is going to use Google Drive. I am going to look for Google Drive. We pop that in there. What is our activities? We're not going to do every activity here. We are just going to, let's say we will allow uploading. In fact, let's just do upload and download for the time being. Right, so we'll do upload and download. We won't go into all the detail of share and everything like that. We'll leave it on as alert for now, and we're going to call this, I'll call it webinar so I can delete it straight after. Webinar G Drive DLP. Let's call it that. I save this. I'm going to put it right at the top of my policy tree, and I'm going to apply changes. Netskope reads from top to bottom when it comes to policies. So if you've got a block policy, you want to put an allow before a block policy. In order that if you put an allow after a block, it's going to stop at the block, put it that way. So you have to get your logic right in the order of the policies that you do. So let that save. I'll just quickly jump into my Google Drive. On one thing, the machine that I'm on at the moment is a very small VM, so I'm hoping it's going to last this entire session. Well, one thing that I didn't mention there is you do actually have the power. Because it's an alert, we don't get the option to do it, but you can fully customize what a user sees. So in here, in this user notification side of things, you can fully customize this. So I've got demo DLP alert there. That I have put this in alert mode. Alert means that only Netskope will alert on it. The user isn't going to know what's happening here. They're never going to see it. You've installed the client on the user's machine. It's monitoring, sending their web traffic up to the tenant, but they're not going to know that this policy exists because it is just alerting. And at the moment, an alert is an allow. Okay, so it's not going to go any further through my policies. As soon as someone uploads or downloads from Google Drive, it will create an alert in Netskope. I can then see the visibility of what's going on there, but the user's not going to know. It's not going to block them in any way. So if I come to Google Drive now, and let's just upload a file, and I'll pick my little WeTransfer.txt here. It doesn't contain any GDPR or anything information in it, but we just want to see that being uploaded. And if we come back to our tenant I am hoping that we will see an alert for that shortly. This is definitely Google Drive, upload, download. You can click this and be taken to the alert screen. Let's make sure that I am definitely on this particular tenant. Yes, I am. My little client is all fully up to date. Okay, we're not seeing the alert, so let's block it. And then we'll know in real time if it's actually doing it. So I'm going to block that. I've left it as the default template there. I might actually have to close and reopen the browser because I'm logged into this at the moment, but let's give it a go. So let's delete our WeTransfer.txt. Let's do WeTransfer.txt. And we can see we are blocked. So that was actually working there in the background. It's just taking a moment for the alert to show up. You can see that I now cannot upload to Google Drive. It's not allowing me to do so. Netskope has blocked me from transferring that file. So let's jump back here. I will just refresh this page. And our Google Drive is still empty. So there, we've got 2 alerts now. So we did get that first alert when it was set up. Let's do it as a user alert now. Bam, bam, bam. So this is going to tell the user they are going to be able to continue. Okay. Let's see if we've got a justification. No, let's leave it as the default then. I haven't created a justification. So we will save that and we will apply our changes. So now the user is going to be told something, but they can continue. Maybe they'll be asked, depending how this default template is configured, they might have to input a reason as to what they're doing before they can continue. If I upload this and we choose our WeTransfer again, so there we've got justify usage or report false positive has come up. We're going to be allowed, so we do have a proceed button or we've got a stop button. So let's just put in webinar as our reason and we will proceed. Let that moment to kick in and our WeTransfer has uploaded. So the reason that showed you 3 ways of doing it there is when it comes to DLP, you want to know who's doing what first of all. So that alert policy that I did at the start, I would be putting on an alert policy, but you have to remember alert is allowed. It's not going to block in any way, shape or form. So if you've already got some kind of DLP rules in place, you want to do this with a small subset of users that you trust or something like that, instead of opening up everything. But we want to see what the users are up to. We want to see what the impact of our policies are going to have on our users before we start blocking them from doing their jobs. So our first one was an alert. Let's jump into our alerts here. And there we go. Yeah, so the bottom one is going to be our alert when we were trying to upload. The second one is when we got blocked from uploading. And then the top one, you can see it's proceed here, meaning that it was a user alert. So what I would do is I'd roll it out to alert first, get all the visibility, do a bit of analysis of the user's activity, see what they're up to, see what they're like doing file-wise, where they're sending stuff. Then I would create my policies to make them only able to do what they're allowed to do, but I would put them on as user alert to warn them. You would say something like, this file may contain, sensitive information. As of, 5 days from now, we're going to start blocking this activity. So, change your plan at the moment as to how you're doing what you're doing, because you're going to be blocked from this soon. Then in the 5 days, I turn on the block element and everyone's been warned, and it doesn't come as a shock that they are being blocked. You don't get a million calls on day one of turning on a block with people saying, I didn't know this was coming, I can't do my job anymore, I need to send this file, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's fully aware. If you do the alert, user alert, and then you do your block. So what are we doing right now? We are blocking Oh, sorry, we've got user alert on our Google Drive. But it's not a DLP policy that we've created. All we've done is block uploads and downloads. So I'm going to quickly change this over to allow. So we're going to allow uploads and downloads. Remember, it's not DLP yet, it's just the activity that's being blocked. So now that we know our users use Google Drive, we've done our analysis, they should only be using Google Drive, but we see some outliers. We see people using WeTransfer. We see people are using a personal Google Drive, they're using Office, they're using all sorts, but we only want them to be able to use Google Drive. Well, here we can bring in a quick web policy. Now this is going to be huge, okay? I'm going to select every single policy here. I do have an all categories policy, which would probably be better. I've put all the categories together in an all categories one, just to keep it nice and tidy here. And then I block upload and download. So we are now going to block. Now this might cause issues because I'm not qualifying it that it is DLP. I am blocking every upload and download. So there's going to be things out there that are going to be uploading and downloading to my machine right now that I'm not even aware of. And I'll say webinar all. I mean, I might even lose the ability to work with Netskope here when I enable this because it is such a blanket block for upload and download, but we'll do it anyway. There's no harm in doing it because I can turn it off elsewhere. Now, remember that we've got an allowed policy and it reads top to bottom. So we want our block to go after our allow. And then I'm going to save that. And then we'll see if we start getting a million alerts. So we have blocked upload and download across the entire internet. Probably it's probably too broad a brush here that's going on. But we can try it out. So let's go to WeTransfer. See, I'm starting to get all kinds of, it's probably trying to download cookies to my machine at the moment, and it can't download a cookie. So I'm essentially in incognito mode right now, I guess, because it cannot put cookies on my machine because it cannot download them. We go into WeTransfer. I thought there was a free option. Yep, there is. I'll probably have to go into an email account to use this. But in fact, let's just use Box. It's going to be too much of a hassle to get into that. So let me log into Box. And yeah, I'm going to keep seeing this. I'm going to keep seeing it. We'll do new file upload. Choose a WeTransfer. It says it's completed, but it is actually blocked. I refresh the page. You can see we've got no WeTransfer.txt. So even though Box told me that that had completed, Netskope did actually block it from being uploaded. But again, this is going to be, over time, this is going to be unusable. This blocking every upload and download with such a broad brush. Let's just make sure we can still do our Google Drive. And we can, so we can use Google. We can't upload and download anywhere else. So our DLP problems are solved because we've stopped the user essentially uploading data anywhere on the internet except for Google Drive. But it is too broad a brush. You're going to run into issues with it. You're going to not be able to update things. You're going to have problems with it. And that's where the granular element comes in. You can see that I technically only triggered one hit with it, which was when I uploaded to Box. I've actually triggered 14 alerts. So if you imagine going round how many users in your company and they're triggering that many alerts in such a small amount of time, then like it's f.text. I know that that's a cookie that's given to you in Chrome. It's got some kind of email in it. It's got some kind of email. I think it's my email address used on my profile is included in the text file. So therefore, it's that trying to download that little cookie from Chrome. I'm triggering it constantly. And so we're not going to use that. So we need to look at a different approach. Well, how are we going to stop this? How are we going to stop our exfiltration of data? Well, we can now turn it into a DLP policy. And we can say that we're going to allow uploads and downloads, but if it triggers DLP, then we want to block it, okay? So if we jump into DLP here, we can see that out of the box, Netskope gives you a whole ton of predefined GDPR rules, medical rules, terms, conditions, etc., that meet certain DLP markers. Now you can mess with these as much as you want. You have to clone it. You cannot mess with a predefined policy, but you can clone it, and then you can tweak it to your heart's content. So I've got ones down here. I've got a custom one here that I've created. You can see there's a PII one, there's a PCI one. They're pretty vague, these ones. You can tie down into GDPR more. They're split by country, so we've got US here, there's Australian come up, there's an Australian one there, and so on. There's EU as a whole comes up. And these are just the overall profiles that they give you. Behind the scenes, there are a ton of rules that you can use. So in here, come on. So there's a whole bunch of EU, meaning Australia markers. We've got Brazil, we've got Canadian, we've got tons of them. You can really go to town on creating all different kinds of things that will hopefully meet your tastes when you do that definition of what your DLP is. What's your definition of sensitive data? So you can do one that is source code as a whole, but then look, they've split it all down into different types of coding language here. So if you didn't care about like Java, then you don't have to block Java, but you can block everything else. I don't know why you would do that. I would just do source code as a whole, but that's an idea of the rules. You can also, if you're getting false positives or you want to make your own DLP rule, so say for example, you're using something like Bowden James, you're tagging documents, you've got a classified, mentioned in documents, confidential. You can create dictionary rules, exact match rules to say if these terms appear, you want to take action, or you can say ignore these terms. So one common reason for doing the ignore is, say for example, you've got a company and you've got a whole bunch of users and their email signatures and they're writing statements of work and they're putting their names into boxes and their email addresses and their phone numbers. Well, if they email that document to someone, it's going to come up as a GDPR hit because it's going to pick up the full name, it's going to pick up their email address, it's going to pick up maybe the company address and think it's a home address, it's going to pick up the phone numbers, and it's going to trigger a GDPR thing on it. But is it GDPR if you're sending it from the business and it is a business document? Then to me, it's not. If it's something that you've consented to give that information to a customer, it's not going to be GDPR. Maybe on the customer side, because they've got to protect it, because it's not their data, it's not their personal information. But you have sent it to the customer, you're okay with it, so you can make a list of everyone in your business, their phone numbers, the company address, etc., and say if these show up in the document, ignore them, and it leads to less false positives. So that's an exact match in dictionaries. You can create all these rules, and then you've got your profiles as well here. So what do we want to block? We want to block, say, PII data. In fact, we'll choose GDPR. I think the document I've got triggers GDPR. So we'll change this to a DLP policy now. So rather than block just upload and download, we will block only the content of the file. So the policy we have created here is a cloud app policy. Yeah, I need to actually create the policy from scratch. I can't change. Oh, no, I can add a profile. DLP profile. This is new, so you never used to be able to do this. You used to have to choose it at the point of creation of the policy, but now I can change it on the fly, which is good. So I'm going to choose GDPR there, and I'm saying that for all users, for Google Drive, we're allowing the uploading. Let's change that to allow. I've left it as alert. We're allowing the uploading and downloading of data that is GDPR. Okay, so we'll save that. I'm not going to save everything yet, but if we come into this one, we're blocking. We want to add our profile and DLP. We'll choose the same GDPR rule or profile. So we're saying again, for every type of web activity, for all users downloading and uploading, we want to block GDPR. And we save and apply and apply. Let that sync for a moment. And because it's a cloud tenant, as soon as that is synced, you've seen it before, I can just go straight to it and the rule is already in place. I'm not waiting for any kind of replication and stuff like that. It takes about 30 seconds from the point of saving for the rule to be enacted for your users. So let's give it a whirl. So let's go to my drive and we'll do a file upload. I'm going to upload my Hilton document. So this is just a fake Hilton document full of personal information. If I call it up, you'll see that. It's just fake information, fake name and stuff like that in it. So it's like, you know, just fake stuff, fake phone numbers, all that type of stuff, just to try and trigger the rule. And you can see that I've been able to upload it. So now if I go back to Box, and let's try and upload it in here. But you notice that I'm not getting the alert down here anymore for the f.text. That isn't happening. And I'm not allowed. So you can see it's because I'm using the default template, it's saying justify the usage and so on. I don't have a proceed button, so I can't do anything. If we come back to our tenant, what I'll do is if we go into user notification and we'll choose our demo DLP alert notification. So the template name is, we've got GDPR content detected, Netskope is detected, this has got blah, blah, blah. But what we can do at the bottom is we'll make that block because it's blocked, and we will direct users to drive.google.com. Sorry, I need to put in the HTTPS then. There we go. And we'll apply the changes. We'll come back to our policy. We'll go to our webinar block. And down at the bottom here, we change our template to the demo DLP alert. We should save. And there we go. So now if I come to Box, this doesn't work all the time when I do the redirect, by the way. Just in case it doesn't work here. You can see that I've been given a proceed option. I need to take that away. Yeah, it's blocked it. I needed to change that template to only be a block template and not a user justified template. So that's my mistake. But you can see it's blocked it anyway. It hasn't allowed me to proceed. I should have turned off the proceed button in that template, but that's fine. It hasn't allowed it to be uploaded there. We do not have it in this box. Now, just to show that it is definitely reading the content of the file, if I come back to WeTransfer.txt, so we tried to upload the Hilton document. The WeTransfer.txt file doesn't actually contain any GDPR or anything like that. It is literally just one word of text. So let's see if we can now upload this. So WeTransfer.txt. We get no alert and it has uploaded fine. We've got WeTransfer.txt there. So it's reading the content of our file and it's saying, right, you contain GDPR, so we're going to enact this policy. You are not Google Drive, so I am going to block you. Or it's saying you are Google Drive, so I'm going to allow you. And that is it. Really, that is the basics of the DLP in Netskope. Now, there's way more to it because we have to now start layering on the different type of, think of CASB type attack vectors, variables and things that can be attributed to this. But I'm just going to take a quick drink because I've been talking for 40 minutes non-stop. Okay, so We have blocked it at the application level. Well, we blocked it at the web level for everything, and we're allowing it at the application level for Google Drive. The issue that we now have is that that is for Google Drive, no matter who is logged in. So therefore, what can you do in Google? You can switch your profile very, very easily. I can switch to a different user in Google, both in Chrome, Drive, anywhere. I can just add another account, and then I can just log in as my personal account. So if I was going to steal stuff from your business, or if I wanted to find a way around the block and get a file out by 5 p.m. to close a deal, that type of stuff, I'm just going to go into my personal account. I'm going to find a way around it. I'm going to take it from the company account and download it to my machine. I'm going to log into my personal account. I'm going to upload it to the personal account, and then I'm going to send it, and you have completely lost control of that file now. That is gone. So you don't know where it is now. You've got no control. You can't do subject access requests on it. It's essentially in the wild. Once it hits that personal account, it is gone. So what we need to do is we need to stop the user from logging into Google Drive unless it is their proper account. And we can do that by doing a new policy. We'll do it as Cloud App. We could do it at web level if we want and do it for all internet again. But we'll do it here. Sorry, I should put Google first. Google Drive. And we will do a activity and constraint. And we're looking for the login one. Do we have login? No, we don't. So therefore, we can't do this one at the application level, but we can do it at web level. So let's change it to category. So we know that drive.google.com is a cloud storage app, don't we? We can check that if we come into web here and we put in drive.google.com. You see it's cloud storage, but the little trick to this is it's actually accounts.google.com. That's what I'm missing. The way that Google works is it's essentially its own IDP. So when you go to log into Google, you log into a login screen first, and then you get sent to what apps you're going to use. That uses the token from the login screen to send you there. So therefore, me going to drive.google.com, that's why there's no login option for it, because you don't actually log into it. It's the same with Office 365. So you log into like accounts.microsoft.com first, or live.com or something. Then you go to OneDrive. Then you go to SharePoint. So what I'll do now is I'll choose accounts.google.com. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be Google Accounts? Yes, it is. There we go. Now we're going to say we want to allow a login attempt on this, but we're going to use a constraint. And we're going to say it matches our work domain. And we're going to save that. And we're going to allow. I'm going to save that. I'm going to put it right at the top of our policies. I can already feel this machine is slowing. Oh, sorry, I haven't put the name in there. I can feel this machine is slowing down. I've got 17 minutes left to go through the advanced stuff. So, webinar, login, DLP. And we should really put in G Drive, something to say where it is. I'm going to put that one right at the top, and we'll save it. Just for quickness, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one for box. I would usually do this at the category level, or so it's wide, or I would do it. I wouldn't go around every single application and put in a block login policy for it. But for now, we'll just do it very quickly for box. Box. And our login attempt. I think he's getting in my way. And then we're going to say does not match work domain and save it. And this time we're going to block. I'm not going to bother changing. In fact, I do have a non-work account one. Should I created a non-work account one? No. Okay, we'll just leave it to default. And we'll call this one webinar box block. And we put this after our allowed policy. Syncing policies, all is well. Now the constraints that I've just done there go into here, so you can specify different types of constraints. So I'm saying in this one that the username has to match the demo account username that I use, just the suffix of it, and then it doesn't match it, just the complete opposite. And just to walk through those policies again, the user will attempt to log into Google Drive. They will hit this policy. They're going to try a login. It matches the work domain, so it's going to let them log in. If they try to go to Box and they try and log in, and they don't have a like work account, I guess, it doesn't match the work account, then they're going to be blocked. But there's various ways that you can twist this, so you can make it where the user can never use their work account for an application that you've not sanctioned by even blocking the work account logging in across everything except for things you allow. There's various stages you can take this to, but just for the benefit of this demo, we're going to show that we can still log into Google, but we can't log into Box when we're using whatever account we need to use. So I'm going to sign out of Google. And just sign back in. I'm taken to Okta first. We'll just go to Drive. That was me signing into Google there. It's just taken to, because I'm using Okta SSO, I've been able to log back into Google. I've been able to get back to Google Drive. So with that policy enabled, let's do the same with Box. So we'll sign out of here. We'll pop in our username. We try to put in our password. Remember, if it does not match the work domain, it's going to be blocked. You can see that I can still get into this, right? But now if I try it from a different account, so we'll do test@test.com and then pop in a password. Say we're human. We'll attempt to log in and we get a Netskope block. So various logical steps can be done there to prevent a user from using an application with a personal account or logging into anything with a work account, without a work account. Because imagine this, that these websites, applications are hacked all the time. So if users are signing up for things using their work account, like if they're going to Dropbox and create their account in Dropbox using their work account, probably going to use the same password just for easiness, and then Dropbox gets hacked, all the credentials get dumped on the internet, and someone knows their username, someone knows their password while it's out there. So therefore, you don't want to have people signing up for things using their work account, so you could block that for everything except for the applications you allow. You could then block the personal accounts from everything, including the applications that you use, so they can't switch to like a personal Google Drive. And then you've controlled exactly where the users, not where they're going on the internet, but what they're interacting with on the internet. We're back at that granular activity level control that Netskope gives you, where we're looking at the users, essentially. I'm going to come back to my policies. We've got 11 minutes left, so let's touch upon, I don't have this feature on the test tenant, but they do have a cloud firewall. So the one use case I've been going over with customers with that is I'm sitting right now in my house. I'm sitting right in front of my desktop. So in this room that I'm in this house, I have a desktop machine sitting in front of me. So you can make as many of these policies as you want to stop me doing stuff on the internet, but I can RDP to that machine that's sitting in front of me. That if I wanted to steal any files off of this MacBook that I'm on, I could just RDP to that machine and copy the files that way. So when you're thinking of cloud firewall, people think, oh, well, why would I have a firewall on a user's account? You know, they're not they're not doing it, they're not RDPing anywhere, blah, blah, blah. That's one massive data exfiltration point, is they don't necessarily have to go into Azure and spin up a VM and, you know, create a device to RDP2 or SSH to and, you know, SCP files up to. They could just do it in their home machine. They could just RDP to a home Windows box, transfer files onto it. Cloud Firewall lets you block that in the same way that we're blocking the web activity. It would block the protocol, blocks the address, unless it's trusted, etc. They're also, it's not out yet, they've got it coming where it's going to do that for USB drives as well. So if I plug in a USB drive into this MacBook right now and I try and copy a file to it, these same policies can be attributed to that data transfer. Okay, so you've got that extra protection. The file can't leave the device now, either via a non-web protocol or via a direct transfer. I believe it's going to be print as well. That was mentioned, but don't quote me on that. I'm sure that it was mentioned in an RFP on the roadmap that I wouldn't be able to even print a document if it contained GDPR. If I try to send it to a printer, it's going to be blocked as well. I'd say it's on the roadmap. It is something that is due out soon, I believe. But I would want to see it first before I comment any further, but those things are coming. That's what I'm saying. They keep building and building on top of this solution that it just, if I was to talk about everything in it, it'd become an absolute nightmare. So next, we've got advanced DLP, and then I'm going to very quickly touch on our visibility. So if we look at our Google Drive, we uploaded a document. It was a Word document, very easy to read a Word document, very easy to read a text file. No problem going in and reading the text of that when it needs to check the content. So what do we do if it's a picture? How would I steal this content right now and get around the DLP? I would just take a screenshot of that. So I would take a screenshot. It's now a JPEG or a PNG, and therefore it's non-text, so the DLP is not going to be checked. Easiest way to circumvent DLP in a company, just take a screenshot. You can get around it most of the time. I showed before you can block encrypted files, source code and stuff like that. So if a user did zip up a file, if I create a new DLP policy here, let's go for web access, go to our profiles. There is a source code one in here as shown. I would put that on as default for all users in every single company, that they cannot upload, download source code. Give it to the dev team, allow them to do it, but don't allow anyone else to. Then we've got password protected. So if a user sends a file that cannot be decrypted by Netskope, then it's going to be blocked. So if it's got a password on it, Netskope's going to block it if it cannot decrypt and inspect the content of it. I would have that on for everyone as well. But now we need to look at, what about if they take a screenshot? Well, in our DLP, we have got the ability to do what's called a fingerprint. And a fingerprint is where it's not going to check every single image for DLP. It's going to be impossible to do that on the internet. But you can give it examples of things to look at. So a common thing I remember is I used to work for a company, and in the mailroom, they used to get all these application forms in. It was a qualification company. So you paid for exams, you paid for that year's courses during enrollment and so on. And people would send in these application forms, but they had to fill in a credit card section. They had to actually write their credit card info on the form, which is just crazy to me now. But someone was taking photos of those and stealing them. They were taking photos of the application form, the user's financial information, was stealing the info off of the form. So obviously we want to move to an electronic world where we don't have that ability to take those photos, but we've got this fingerprint is where I could give it an example of that form and say, if you see information in this section of the form, then check it. So as you're looking at all these pictures and things on the internet, if you ever see a picture that resembles this one, I want you to essentially scan it like an OCR, so the way that a scanner works, turn it into text, and tell me if there's anything in it that is GDPR. Okay, so I've created a fingerprint rule here already. As you can see, if I go into it, it's got a threshold of 85%. So if Netskope is 85% sure that if what I have uploaded there matches the example I've given, so you can take like a passport, you can take like a driver license, something like that, something that might be common to be sent. Maybe your HR company get passports all the time. Then what you do is you give it an example of a passport, and then you say within a threshold, check this, and then it'll check it and tell you it's a passport. So I've created my fingerprint, I've created my rule for my fingerprint to say 85%. If I go back to my policies and we scroll all the way down, I've got a fingerprint one here, fingerprint profile. So now, instead of our GDPR, in fact, we'll just add it to the GDPR one actually. So let's do finger and save. And then we'll put that on our block as well. Save, apply, and apply. So what we've done, we've said that in Google Drive, you can upload the picture with the identity card essentially, but you can't do it in Box. So let's try it. So the picture is this. So it's a fake, again, of a fake ID card. It's used in training and stuff like that. And it is this GDPR ID card. And there you go. So it's been able to upload this Norwegian ID card there. Let's try it in Box. We don't want to do a form. Oh, that's right. I can't log into Box, can I? But I can, sorry. That's why I set it up to allow me to log in with this account. So I didn't need to go and turn all that off. And we'll just try and upload our file. Find our GDPR. And we're blocked. So it has essentially taken that ID card. It said, I know you. I'm 85% sure that you're a fingerprint of mine that's been uploaded. So I am going to scan you the way a scanner does, turn everything in your picture into text, and read all that text and block you if it contains GDPR information. And it does. So therefore, we've been blocked. That's quite handy. But you do need to give it that fingerprint first. You can't just expect it to do it to every picture in the internet. It's just not going to work that way. You need to tell it what to look for. So you'll be looking at ID cards. If you've got application forms for a job, maybe CVs. CVs are a good one because CV formats, people use all different formats and things. But if you're getting standard CVs in from a recruitment company where they reformat them, then you could give it that. So to matches and so on. So it's definitely something you want to think about to stop people taking the screenshots and sending them out. But the one thing that you cannot stop is I could take a photo of my screen right now. You will never stop that until they come up with a screen that can't be photographed. Data leaks will still happen no matter how many things you put in with this. Last thing to look at, let's just jump into our alerts. We've got tons and tons of alerts now triggered from earlier when I was getting the f.text blocks and all that. We get full visibility of everything going on in our estate. We've got all these blocks, uploads, allows, etc., logins, all triggered from the policies. We get that full visibility. One other thing, they do have this, they do like user behavior analytics and things like that. This is all the DLP events that have happened, but every time you're failing one of these, it's affecting your user score, that you can start to see users that maybe keep breaching GDPR to give them a bit more training. One thing I'm not going to go into today, but it's quite handy, is you can actually hook with some applications, you can hook Netskope into it directly. So I've hooked my Netskope into Google Drive directly, and I can see all the breaches, I can see all the files, the historic data of the files I've been uploading, downloading. It does threat protection. It's scanning everything that goes up there for DLP based on my policies. It's checking for threats, etc. Gives you way more visibility as to what's going on in your estate. If you're using a cloud app for file storage, definitely you want to be seeing what's going on in that cloud app, not just at the user level, but in the app itself. This is after the fact, it's called introspection, so it's not real time. It is, if I upload a file, I generate a timestamp, and then Netskope sees that timestamp. It's not checking the file immediately as soon as I press upload, the same way the client is. But once the file exists, Netskope then gets a timestamp saying, Paul has uploaded a file. And Netskope goes, well, I'm going to go and check that file. And I'm going to see if there's any threats in it. And I'm going to see if there's any DLP in it based on my policies. So it's going to do that too. And that is it for, I call a brief, I mean, bang on an hour, but a brief overview of Netskope. A DLP, so remember, we're blocking based upon content. We could block based on activity, but you could run into issues if you do it too wide, if you're blocking upload and download. But you definitely want to be blocking every single attack vector, every exfiltration point on the internet. And it's very easy to do that with these category-based policies. And then only open up the holes in the application that you want. So block the personal logins. Allow the real logins to the real apps that you use. Allow the activities that a team needs at a granular level. You're thinking least privileged when it comes to the internet. Don't block off the internet for every single user. I've seen that go very wrong for companies where, you know, users essentially can't do their jobs. I mean, I spend all day trying to solve things where I'm on forums. You know, I'm on various tech forums and things like that, whereas some companies block all forums. So I worry about the tech people that work for them. They must be experts, because I couldn't do my job without being able to Google prior solutions in Unix and stuff like that. But I could understand blocking it to stop a user logging into a forum. So why not just block the login to the forum instead of everything? And you allow the user to browse the forum. Yes, there are personal forums out there that might post pictures, content that you don't want users using. We'll find them and block them at the domain level, block them at the URL level. But don't block your users from doing their job